Hey y'all, so I got this amp yesterday, wheeled it out, set up all the power tubes and everything, and it is working great. And basically, well, I had to wheel it home in like a cart all the way from the post office at my college because the thing weighs like easily 60-70 pounds. But oh my goodness, it is incredible. This is a Peavey Classic VTX, 50 watts. It is powered by two 6L6 tubes, and it has a solid state power section, and it sounds freaking glorious. Like it's unbelievably good. And once I can get my guitar out of my case so I can test it, I will get y'all the full review and demo and my thoughts on it and all that stuff. This thing sounds so good. I'm going to be playing it through a guitar with humbuckers because humbuckers are the best pickup, and anyone who disagrees can fight me. At the bare minimum... Oh, hey, that's someone too. At the bare minimum, they are the best pickup for this guitar. I'm running it into my Gibson Les Paul Future Tribute with two Gibson 57 Classic pickups. So there are some things I'm not going to be able to demo on this amp. One of which is the clean channel. Now this amp would have originally come from the factory with a foot switch. I'm sorry, I have to move this to get to my cord. And the amp weighs about as much as a house. There we go. But this would have originally come with a foot switch. You can't find them anymore. You can't find the plug for them anymore. It's kind of like those foot switches for the Sun Concert lead. They're kind of necessary for the proper use of the amp, and if they are lost, they are virtually impossible to find. But shoot, reverb turned up yet? This thing is so loud. We're gonna get like a clean tone out of it real quick. On the lead channel, it's a little bit hard to find a clean tone, which is why you kind of need the foot switch, because you can't actually operate the clean channel like at all. There's a pull bright boost, but there's really no way to get to the clean channel on this amp. Yeah. You do have a low gain mode, which is useful for a slightly more clean sound. This oscillates in volume wildly. It oscillates in volume wildly, and it is unbelievably loud. Has real spring reverb, and I'll just demonstrate that real quick. Kind of low on guitars today, and the strings on this thing are really rusty. But let's go to the tones now. Right now, I'll set everything at noon real quick. Presence at noon too, and this is basically the clean sound you'd get. Still got a little bit of crunch to it. I'm gonna turn the saturation all the way down. It is very, very. It likes being distorted. So we're gonna turn the high on the presence, all the bright channel on, and the presence all the way up. let's turn the treble all the way up. With a little bit of reverb, and you pull the bright boost, and you crank the presence and treble, it can get you some good Fender cleans, but it's maxing out all that stuff is what you have to do. And this is on the bridge pickup too. If I switch back to the note pickup, it gets a little nuttier. This is more of a Marshall amp. The Peavey Mace was famously called the Mississippi Marshall. This is pretty close to a Peavey Mace. It even has the phaser too. And what I like to do with this amp is I like leaving the bright switch on. It just sounds so much better with the bright on. Let me turn it off. Turn it on. It's a lot punchier, and it just sounds better. And I'll fiddle with the saturation knob right here. At this stage, it doesn't really do much. I take that back. I guess it does. So basically, the pre-gain and the post-gain, it's like a pre-phase inverter and a post-phase. It's like it's a pre-phase. It's a post-phase inverter master volume essentially. And the post gain is like your actual tube master volume. So I'm going to turn this back down, and we are going to get us some good crunch tones. The saturation is similar to like the trans tube technology on the Peavey Bandit from my gathering of what it is. It's kind of like, for lack of a better word, it kind of like boosts the treble and mids. You're kind of like, when you turn it up, you start getting like woman tone and all that stuff like Eric Clapton was famous for. All the way down, you really can't hear anything. So that like really pushes it into overdrive. But for now, we're just going to move up the pre-gain all the way up. So right there, I mean, this is essentially the kind of distortion you'd be getting off, like, say, a cranked, I don't know, a cranked deluxe reverb. The baffle keeps falling out because I took it out yesterday and the Velcro doesn't want to stick anymore, which is a pain, but you know. But the pre-gain, when you turn that on, it's getting there. You know, you can have a perfectly good gain tone with the pre-gain up and the saturation all the way down. But the magic really starts to happen when you turn the pre-gain and the saturation up. Listen to that. That's about halfway. We're going to turn it all the way up and see what y'all think. At that point, we are entering the wild fuzz territory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the mids and bass, turn up the treble and presence, and we'll get a little bit too trebly right there. Turn down the treble, turn up. Let's turn up the mids too. That's not as distorted as it can get, because when you pull the treble control, it turns the thick pull, which is truly much fuzz as you will ever need in an amp. It is so good. But let's get like a usable tone for, say, like a typical crunch distortion lead. I'm going to push in the push there. So right there we have, actually with saturation at middle and pregain at middle and the pull bright out, it sounds really good. Like that's around where you would want to be for, like, I guess that's pushing it past edge of breakup. But that's where I like to be, to boost it with pedals and just get my other stuff out there. And then you can roll back the volume. You can roll back the volume and get some good clean tones. And for like a typical harder rock thing, I would still pull down the saturation. When you start turning the saturation up and then you do the pull thick button, it really pushes it over the edge to the point where, like, you should only really use it for fuzz. But when we turn the pregain up, we get some really nice crunch. So I would suggest using it like, what is pregain at like 9 on, I mean, not 9, but pregain at like 7 on the dial or something like that, like 3 o'clock. Saturation, dip it back a little to maybe like 10 or 11 o'clock. Post you can leave wherever you want. I like the pull bright feature versus, I just feel like it adds clarity. And then if you really want to push it over the top, just go for the pull thick. Sounds fantastic. And, well, I'll just demo the phaser for y'all real quick. This has a unique feature. It's pull set. It does that. So basically, it adds a ridiculous amount of bass to your tone. Like, bass and volume boost to like infinity. It's unbelievable what that thing does. And I really don't know what it does. What I do know is that by fooling around with it a little bit, you start to figure out which sounds you can do, which sound completely terrible. That's about all I can figure out for the pull boost thing, but the phaser is really usable. I never use hit phaser, but it sounds great. But anyway, let me turn this off, and then I'll just tell you like how much I bought this for, what it had with it. I got this amp for $220. Shipped to me. Now, granted, it was a good deal, and I don't think Sam Ash Music knew what they were doing with this amp, because it is worth every penny. But you can still find these easily for $200 on Craigslist when they show up. People are starting to figure it out, and they're going faster and faster, but you can still find them for $200 when they show up. What made this one really, really good is it had two eminent Swamp Things in the back of it. Each one of those speakers is worth like $100 used, $150 new. And I, being a generous person, I gave one to my rhythm guitarist because his Fender Hot Rod Deluxe speaker was not cutting it. It was ridiculously brittle and all that stuff. And this opened it up so much. Now I have one half is his old speaker, and the other half is the other Swamp Thing, which I personally like because the Swamp Things are really loud and boomy, and then the Fender speaker can't hold anything, and it just gets this weird brittle tone all the time. And it's clear these two speakers are not sharing their power equally, because one side obviously sounds a lot more lopsided, and the other side sounds like it's dying. But I love the sound that I'm getting from this, and he likes the sound that he's getting from his too. But with the stock, I think Peavey did make the Black Widow 12-inch speakers, but the Scorpion 12-inch speakers were a lot more common. But the stock speakers that Peavey had these originally also sell for like $100 for one. They're really good and really loud. Like, I think this is a 50-watt amp, and the speakers are good for 200 watts of power handling, which basically means you could run a Peavey Roadmaster into this thing, and it would still be fine. It is an amazing deal. This is, I hate to say this is so cliche, this is Leonard Skinner tone. I owned a Peavey Mace for like 5 months, 6 months, and this sounds like that. It is very similar. It lacks a little bit of the top end, like crazy fuzz that thing could have at the top, but everywhere else on this sounds just like the Peavey Mace. And the Peavey Mace is like $600. This is $200. Get it. Please get it. It's an amazing combo. And it will never die. As far as I can tell, this thing has not had a repair on it since 1970, and it sounds fine. Not a single function on it is broken. Everything works great. My only gripe about it is that the reverb tank is currently stuck to one of the Swamp Thing speakers, and due to the extremely powerful magnet, I can't get it off. That's about my only complaint with this, other than the fact that it weighs about as much as a collapsed Dwarf Star. But if you can get by those two things and just like leave it in your house or use a car to drive it to your gig, this is as much amp as you'll ever need. It is incredible, and I love it so much. Y'all need to get one. Thank y'all for watching. That's my soapbox on why Peavey is the best amp company ever.